So last week, let me just check if my mic is working. Yes. So last week, I had a massive traumatic experience. I mean, I didn't think it was possible for my system to go through another traumatic experience, but it did. It was shocking. It was unexpected. It was so shocking that, when something really crazy happens to you that you're not expecting, and you thought you've done all the healing possible for it, and that you would never allow this ever to happen to you again, and that your boundaries are up and you're like really attuned, and then something just takes you by complete utter surprise. Like the last person you'd ever think would have the audacity to hurt you or to speak to you in a certain way actually does. It's like one of those shocking moments. And then like two other people that you thought there's no way they're going to ever speak to you again because you've really set the boundaries clear and you've been so protected. You've protected yourself so well that it would never happen again. And you've done all the work. So it kind of took me off guard completely. I was so traumatized. I don't know if I'm ready to actually speak about the details of it, which I don't think I have to, but let's just so that you have an idea where you can relate. And I'm sure you might have gone through something similar, or are going through something similar, or will go through something similar. Whatever the case, you're going to be able to not feel alone as you watch this video, because I feel like it feels like a shock. And it feels like, after all the work I've done on myself and all the effort I've put in, like I'm still put in the same position, but it isn't the same position. That's what I noticed. That was the big aha, because everything about how I reacted and who I became was so different. So let me backtrack a little bit. So just so that you have an idea of the story, it's like coming from a family dynamics that's quite toxic, and you're always walking on eggshells, and you've got trauma in the body anyway. And it like took me years to reassociate to myself, especially after two very toxic relationships, also marriages, and coming back to self and learning all the new techniques and new ways for years on how to build your worth. So, and your self-value and self-love and doing all the meditations and all the work. I mean, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I've been doing this work for over 18 years now. And a lot of my work had to do with helping victims of abuse, of mental and emotional abuse, which are the two relationships I was in. But it's like this, having it come back and slap me silly after feeling that there's no way anyone could treat me that way ever again, especially family members. And to have it happen is shocking. And my system got shocked. And the shock was so intense that I was shivering. And I'm the type that, after my first marriage with the first narcissist, malignant narcissist, 18, 19, 20 years ago now, I opened my throat chakra because I started to just scream and yell, which I never did. But I would just like, arr! You can read all about it in my book, Happily Ever After. You can get it off of Amazon. You'll find it in the description. Anyway, after having that throat chakra, now if anyone attacks me, I'll attack back. I will just answer. I will not shut up. I will not be quiet, right? Which may not be the best way. However, it's who I've grown into becoming. I could change that identity. So in general, when something so shocking happened to me, I yelled and I stood up for myself and I said, this is unacceptable. No one speaks to me this way. And who do you think you are? And I said what I had to say. And the person was just, very narcissistic, going completely haywire. After I left, I was shivering, I was shaking. My kids were with me, which was a horrible thing for them to witness, because in the home environment I have and I've built around them with friends and new friends and new family that I've chosen, it's a very peaceful environment. We communicate, we understand each other, we apologize, we take accountability, we are responsible for who we are. And for them to witness a completely different paradigm and dynamics of life, especially when it comes to the extended family that I'm all boundaried up against, it traumatized them. But it traumatized me a lot more, because I started to put myself down, like, oh my God, you let this happen again. When will this ever stop? Oh my God. And the trauma. And I spent 3 days, or a day, honestly, all of Wednesday in seclusion. My kids went to spend time with their father, and I sat in seclusion and meditated and healed and meditated and healed. And then I noticed something. I noticed, after all this time spending alone, just understanding what happened and allowing my nervous system to align again from that trauma experience, I've noticed that I'm not the same person, that my reaction towards myself is very different, that coming from a toxic family environment and very entitled people who use a lot of silent treatment and, that whole gaslighting and manipulation, to have grown into a person that could hear her thoughts, was not shaming herself, was not guilting herself. And when I did guilt myself or say, well, I could have and or I should have, I would notice it, because conscious awareness is what we're all working towards. I would notice it and be like, why am I talking to myself this way? This is not taking accountability. This isn't taking responsibility. This is not how it looks like by shaming, guilting, and blaming, right? So then I called one of the people, the family members, and that person was all like, oh, you did. No. I was like, you know what? The way I did express myself, I apologize. That was not correct. So the person had nothing to say, because I took responsibility for how I reacted to the situation, which is very loud and verbal. But I didn't apologize for standing up for myself. And that person was quiet. And then a few hours later, they sent me a very aggressive message, shaming me and actually saying, shame on you. And I looked at the message and I was like, oh, well, at least I knew how to apologize. That's a good thing. I didn't succumb to the, oh my God, I have to send another message and be nice and polite. Nothing. I noticed that I didn't guilt myself about it. I didn't judge myself. I didn't should myself. And I don't know how many of you resonate with this. I mean, how many times do you should yourself or guilt yourself when situations happen just because you've been brought up in that environment? And now after you've been doing all this healing and this energy work, and yes, it feels like it's going nowhere. And it feels exhausting to have all this extra knowledge. And yes, there is a very fine line between being obsessive about having to heal and having to do the thing. And there's a fine line between what I've learned and I'm incorporating in my world. And so who I became with myself, maybe I reacted the same way, which is, but who I became with myself after the scenario has changed. And that's how you can get to tell who you are. So how I took it is, the situation happened, just popped out of thin air, to me, is so that I can really recognize who I was 2-3 years ago, and how I would react to the same situation, and who I am today and how I'm reacting today. And the big telltale sign, my loves, is how are you with yourself? That's the thing that was I was like, wow, I'm not talking to myself in a bad way. I'm being nice to me. I'm being kind to me. I've got my back between me and me. I didn't send people messages and I didn't tell them that, hey, I've noticed I've changed. I completely detached and ignored from that. And the most important aspect was, who am I becoming with myself? I also noticed blaming them wasn't that intense anymore. It was, yes, I did. I'm like, how dare they are. But then later on, it didn't last that long, like a few hours. But then it was so irrelevant. They were irrelevant in what they did, because what was most relevant was, who did I become with myself? And that was the big aha, where I'm like, oh, all the work has infiltrated positive affirmations, talking myself up, using, and I'll tell you this amazing, amazing mantra to use, like as often as you can. There are two of them. The first one that I used so much, like it would be like I would even sing it to myself, which is, I'm loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable. 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 Stuff like that. And just these three. I'm loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable. And if I'm in a bad mood, I'm not in the mood to sing, I'll just repeat it. And if I'm in a happy mood, I'll sing it, or whatever. It doesn't even matter. It's just, it's reprogramming myself. This is the language I want to speak to me. I don't want to tell me, oh, you should have, you could have, you would have, blah, blah, blah. And then being like, oh, I'm so upset. Now I'm manifesting negative thoughts and negative things instead of going through all this mayhem. You know, that's what I've been doing actually for a good year and a half, just like pops in. And the second one I do is just thank you. And I don't specify. The thing is, I don't specify, like, thank you for the sky, thank you for my breath, thank you. I don't do any of that. I just say thank you. And when my mind comes in and starts to say, thank you for what? Look at the crap that just happened. Like, even when that crap was happening, there was an inner mantra of thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I don't even know, my logical mind doesn't know what I'm saying thank you for. That's the crazy part. And before, when I was doing this years ago, I was like, okay, I have to be thankful, but I have to notice, what am I grateful for? What am I gratitude for? Okay, thank you for the trees. Thank you for the sky. Thank you for my breath. Thank you for my legs. Thank you for my health. But my mind would always fight against it. Like there was always something else that it wanted to say or judge. But then when it's like a blanket statement of thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and the mind comes in like, for what? You know, and it wants to say the sky, because it wants to be like all like, I know better. And you're like, no, just thank you, thank you, thank you. So these are the two ways that that have helped me a lot. And of course, there are a million other things. I mean, I work in limiting beliefs. I work through shadow. You know, I do little ceremonies with myself. I channel information. I journal. I mean, there's 1,000 things, but it feels like the overriding program, it's like I'm trying to override a program of yucking me, putting me down, is I love you, I'm lovable, I'm loved, and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So what happens is when situations come out of thin air, or maybe you manifested them, who cares? It doesn't even matter. Like even spending any time thinking of that, like, did I manifest? Did it happen? Did I make it happen? All that. If you're into that, that's just going to drive you crazy. It's pointless. It is what it is. Like it happened. And right after it, to just, even if you can't imagine why you're saying thank you because you're filled with rage, you just repeat thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Not that it'll calm you down, not that anything. It's just thank you, so that at some point there is no shaming and guilting yourself. Like you can be free of that. At least, like, this is what this healing journey is to free yourself of being so disgusting to yourself and so horrible and abusive to yourself. How many of you have experienced, like, if you really think about how abusive are you to yourself? How abusive are you? So watch how situations happen. And if you've been on the journey of conscious awareness and noticing your thoughts and noticing you are not your thoughts, and being consciously aware of, like, God, why am I thinking that thought? And being like, I'm not interested in that thought, or sitting with the feeling, or whatever it is that you're going through. When situations like this happen, please start to notice, because you do need to praise yourself a little bit. Just start to notice, like, how am I talking to myself better? Did I put myself down? Did I guilt myself into sending messages and panicking and fearing the consequences and all that? Or have I been kind to myself and I stood up for me, with me? Doesn't have to be with others, but with myself. Did I like say, you know what, Rain, I've got your back. I'm here with you. I love you. You're lovable. You're all that stuff. You already said sorry for the reaction you had, the action you did, and that's it. And the people don't want to take it. They simply refuse. They want to continue the pattern, the crazy, crazy pattern. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you just because I think it's really important to recognize how far you've gone, how far you have moved forward. So sharing my story can help you recognize that moving forward in life basically means, who are you and how do you speak to yourself, with yourself, when situations happen in your life? So have you all noticed, has any of you actually noticed how you speak to yourself when a situation happens? What is going on with you? Share that with me in the comments. I love reading your comments because it feels really like, oh, okay. So it feels like, yes, my voice is heard and what I'm saying is touching your hearts. And at the same time, I get to hear your delightful stories because you actually matter to me. Like, I energetically feel you. You matter to me. So take care of yourselves. Don't forget to please hit the subscribe button, like this, comment at the bottom, share it with others, and it's good for the algorithms, I heard. And I also love reading your comments, and seeing those thumbs up really makes me feel like I'm giving something. At the same time, I also have another channel. It's called Expand with Mel and Rain. And in those episodes, there's a lot to learn. I sit and channel a lot of information. Mel asks me questions. We talk about things that I think the collective need to hear, and I challenge the program. So take care of yourselves. Love you all so dearly. And please watch this video. It'll really help you even dive deeper into what I'm saying. Take care. Bye.